pleased to say we're joined by Marianne Hota and by Nigel Nelson. There they are in the big screen. Marianne, Nigel, lovely to have you with us here on this Sunday morning. Let's get straight into it. Marianne, I'm going to start with you. Front page of The Observer is what you've picked up. And this is, obviously the strike action is coming next week on the railways, but this is a line that NHS staff and teachers are going to be balloted about whether they want to take industrial action as well.
Yeah, that's it. The heads up being that everyone else is worried about the cost of living crisis, about potential pay rises being far from in line with inflation. So, for example, the National Education Union, the NEU, they are waiting for a pay offer, and on Wednesday they're saying that if it isn't coming back and it's closer to inflation, which is running at around 9%, or if you're going on the retail price index, it's 11%, they're going to ballot their members. That's 45,000 teachers and teaching staff who would potentially strike in autumn when schools are back in after the summer holidays. Again, Unison, who represent NHS staff, this week, it's kind of a crunch week because all NHS staff up to the level of senior nurse will be receiving their information about their pay increases. And the risk is, they're expecting to get a pay offer between 3 and 4%. And that obviously is kind of far below. So in real terms, that's a pay cut. Now, everybody's experiencing that at the moment, I think, unless you're in one of those industries, probably in the financial services where you're benefiting, or you've got a lot of independent wealth where you can cleverly benefit somehow from this spiraling inflation cost. But for the rest of us who are kind of reliant on a pay packet, the sums just fail to add up quite rapidly. The greater cost is, of course, that senior, more experienced staff who might be getting close to retirement, who might have plans for their exit already in place, might just go, this isn't worth it, I'm out. I can't, this job is too hard, we're too overburdened, we're too understaffed. And at the point you lose experienced teachers, at the point you lose experienced nurses and midwives, people suffer, children in schools suffer, behaviour standards suffer, families suffer because they don't get support from those educational specialists who are experienced, who have seen it and who can help. And, a ward is run by its nurses, by its support staff. The doctors pop in, basically. If you don't have those experienced nurses, then how do they teach the next generation? How does this become a career that is aspirational, that is exciting, that has longevity because people don't get burnout?
And we're seeing some of those concerns at the moment, aren't we, Marianne, in a number of the industries you've talked about. I thank you for that, but I want to keep moving on to the front page of the Sunday Telegraph and bring Nigel in as well, because, Nigel, this is another story about the strikes, but this one has a line from the Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, essentially accusing unions of bribing their workers. Now, this is about strike pay. Explain to us what strike pay is and what Kwasi Kwarteng has been saying in the paper this morning.
Yeah, well, strike pay is compensation for the fact you're not being paid if you're out on strike. So what has happened is that the two big unions, Unite and Unison, have built a war chest up to double strike pay. So that means that Unite will pay their members £70 a day. Unison would pay theirs £50 a day. Now they're not exactly king's ransoms. And Kwasi Kwarteng turns around and says, this is the unions bribing workers to go on strike. I'd have described that as rather prudent forward planning. And as Marianne has just said, we're talking about pay offers now, 3%. It doesn't really cut it when Bank of England is saying that inflation's going to reach 11% by the end of the year. So what's going to happen is we are going to see much more industrial action, and the result of that is going to be that an awful lot of workers are going to lose out on the money they would have got. And whatever you think of the rail strikes, you've got to appreciate that of the 40,000 people who were balloted, 9 in 10 decided to go on strike. So there's a build-up of anger going on in a number of industries in the public sector. As a result, the public are going to suffer, but really the government needs to get a grip of the cost of living crisis to do something about it.
Okay, Nigel, thank you for that. Marianne, let's move on then to the front page of the Sunday Times now. And this is the line that came out of Boris Johnson's visit to Ukraine. As he arrived back, he said that everyone must steel themselves for a long war. There are some concerns from the Prime Minister that people are getting Ukraine fatigue.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone was kind of, it was a little bit like clapping for NHS workers on the doorstep. There was this flurry of excitement, and excitement perhaps might be the wrong word, but perhaps it's more accurate than it ought to be. Excitement of, support and kind of showing our kind of allyship with Ukrainian people. But this isn't going to be a quick war. Russia has too much of too much on the line, too much in the game, too much military personnel and equipment to kind of let this go quickly. So Boris, met up with the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, on Friday, and has come back from that meeting. So he's kind of asking the question: can Ukraine strengthen their defence quicker than Russia can renew their capacity to attack? Russia is now focusing on the east of the country, and this is an interesting development because within the allies of Ukraine, so France, Germany, the UK, the US, there is debate about whether Ukraine should sue for peace and effectively give up those eastern territories, allow them to become part of Russia in order to settle on some kind of peace agreement that brings the war to an end in the rest of the country. Or do we say, actually, that's the kind of equivalent of, giving Hitler Sudetenland, and you kind of let Vladimir Putin win a little bit, probably to keep him quiet, and he won't keep quiet, and actually this is a travesty. It's setting a template for future aggression and future permission, almost, because it demonstrates what we would not be willing to do, which is to fight back. Yeah. It's a big question, and I mean there is real human loss. Obviously, Russian soldiers are conscripted. Whether they do or don't want to fight this war, is anybody's guess. Ukraine are losing between 3,000 and 6,000 troops per month.
Yeah.
So and of course there's millions of people now displaced who've lost their homes, lost their lives, lost their livelihoods.
Thank you for that, Marianne. And Nigel, we're talking there about sort of the difference between how countries focus on it, but talk to us a little bit about how this might play the politics here. We've had full-throated support from all sides for the UK's position supporting Ukraine. I mean, there's no sense of fatigue setting in here among the politics yet, is there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that obviously the longer the Ukraine war goes on, the less it'll be newsworthy, which is why you don't see quite so much of it on the front pages today. The question really comes down to whether both sides can kind of sustain the losses they're making. I mean, although Ukraine are losing up to 6,000 troops a month, according to their own estimates, you're looking at the Russians have suffered much greater. So they've lost something like 32,000 soldiers since the war began, 14,000 tanks, 200 planes. It must be a drain on the Russian defence forces. And obviously all of us hope the Ukraine war will end as soon as possible. But the idea of it dragging on for years does seem to be really on the pessimistic side. At some point there's got to be some kind of settlement. The question is obviously at what point that comes.
Yeah, what kind of settlement that is. All right, Nigel, Marianne, thank you so much for that. We'll see you again in about 45 minutes time. Thank you. Stay with us for the rest of the morning. All right, well, plenty more to come here on Sky News Breakfast. We're going to have the very latest as the Transport Secretary accuses rail union bosses of punishing millions of innocent people, those are his words, ahead of next week's mass strike action.